What if every human being you encounter is under the silent, watchful protection of an unseen force? We go through our days indulging in the small, private cruelties of the mind. We form instant judgments based on a person's face, their clothes, their body. We might even voice these judgments, turning them into a sharp joke, a casual insult, a condescending remark. We think these actions are harmless, that they evaporate into the air, that the only consequence is a fleeting sting of hurt for the target and a moment of smug superiority for ourselves. But an ancient and chilling Sufi story reveals a forgotten law of the universe, a spiritual principle as real and as unforgiving as gravity. It teaches that the creator of a work of art takes personal offense when the art is mocked. It suggests with a quiet and terrible certainty that when you insult a humble person, you may not be dealing with them at all. You may be dealing directly with their owner. This is an invitation to reconsider the very nature of judgment. It is a journey into a dusty, sunlit barbershop where a simple act of mockery sets in motion a chain of events so swift and so final that it leaves us breathless. This story is not a simple fable about karma. It is a far deeper and more unsettling exploration of divine justice, of humility, and of the sacredness imprinted on every human form. In a world where ridiculing others has become a global pastime, where digital mobs form to tear apart a person's appearance, this ancient wisdom is not just a curiosity, it is a lifeline. It is a stark and necessary warning that our words and our thoughts have a weight and a consequence that we can scarcely begin to imagine. It asks us to consider that every face, no matter how plain, is a masterpiece, and to mock a masterpiece is to invite the fury of the artist. Let us step into that barbershop. The air is warm and still, filled with the quiet rhythmic scrape of steel on skin. A dervish, a humble man of God, sits in the barber's chair. He is engaged in an act of profound humility, a tradition among some mystics to shave the head as a symbol of renouncing the ego, of shedding personal vanity. He sits in a state of deep contemplation, his eyes half closed, his spirit quiet. The barber works with care, and half of the dervish's scalp is now a smooth, naked dome, gleaming in the light. The scene is one of peace, of sacred ritual. And then, the door is thrown open. The peace is shattered. A man fills the doorway, a man who is the physical opposite of the dervish. He is huge, loud, a local bully who moves with the swagger of someone who has never been challenged. His eyes scan the room and land on the bizarre sight in the chair, the half-shaved man, a picture of vulnerability. A cruel, predatory smile spreads across the bully's face. He strides over to the chair. Without a word of warning, he raises his heavy hand and brings it down with a loud, sharp crack against the dervish's exposed scalp. The sound echoes in the small shop. The dervish flinches, but does not cry out. "Get up, pumpkinhead," roars the bully. "Get out of the chair. It's my turn to be shaved." The dervish, a man of peace, feels a tremor of fear. He does not wish for confrontation. Without a word, he slides out of the chair, his heart heavy with the sting of the slap and the shame of the public humiliation. The barber, caught between shame for the dervish and fear of the bully, says nothing. He gestures for the bully to take the seat.
As the barber begins his work, the bully's tongue is relentless. His laughter fills the shop as he continues his barrage of insults, each one a small, sharp stone thrown at the quiet dervish in the corner. "Hey, pumpkinhead, is it cold over there? Do you need a hat for half of your head?" The dervish remains silent, his head bowed, absorbing the insults as a dry patch of earth absorbs the rain. Finally, the shave is finished. The bully pays, gives the dervish one last contemptuous sneer, and swaggers out into the street, pleased with his own power, his own wit, his own dominance. He has taken only a few steps down the crowded lane when a sound of chaos erupts from the top of the hill. A horse-drawn cart, its driver thrown and its horses panicked, comes careening down the slope at a terrifying speed. People scream and dive for safety. The bully, caught by surprise, turns to see the chaos hurtling toward him. He has no time to react. The cart is constructed with a long, pointed iron shaft between the two horses, a piece designed for balance and stability. In a horrifying instant, that iron point, aimed by sheer, terrible chance, plunges directly into the bully's stomach. He makes a sound, a choked gasp of disbelief, and collapses to the ground. A pool of dark blood spreads on the dusty street. By the time a crowd gathers, he is gone, dead. Back in the barber shop, the barber stands frozen, his razor still in his hand. He has witnessed the entire sequence of events through his open door. The insult, the humiliation, and the swift, brutal consequence. His mind can only form one conclusion. He turns to the dervish, who is still sitting quietly in the corner. The barber's voice is a mixture of awe and fear. "Brother, wasn't that a bit severe? A heavy price for a few foolish words, don't you think?" The dervish looks up, and his face holds no trace of triumph or satisfaction. There is only a deep, profound sadness. "I swear by the God who made us both," he says, his voice soft and clear. "I was not offended when he called me Pumpkinhead. I did not hold it against him. I saw it as a product of his own ignorance, and in my heart I had already forgiven him. I had given him my right, my due." He pauses, and his gaze seems to look through the barber, into a reality far beyond the small shop. However, the dervish continues, "This pumpkin, it has an owner, and it would seem that he was the one who took offense." In this one chilling sentence, the dervish unlocks the entire mystery. This is not a story about a holy man's curse. It is far more terrifying than that. It is a story about a property owner defending his property. The dervish's forgiveness was completely irrelevant to the outcome. The dervish, by relinquishing his own ego, by choosing not to defend himself, had placed his case in a higher court. The insult was no longer a personal matter between two men. It had become a transaction between the bully and the bully's creator. The central metaphor, "this pumpkin has an owner," is one of the most powerful and radical ideas in all of spiritual thought. It asks us to fundamentally reframe how we see every single person we meet. We do not see autonomous, isolated individuals. We see works of art, each one uniquely crafted, signed, and owned by a single divine artist. Every human form, tall or short, thin or heavy, dark or light, symmetrical or asymmetrical, is a direct, intentional expression of a creative will. To mock the form is to mock the will behind it. To find fault with the creation is to find fault with the creator. The bully did not slap a man, he slapped a living sculpture. He did not mock a dervish, he mocked a divine thought made manifest in flesh and bone.
This understanding completely changes the power dynamics we perceive in the world. The bully, in his ignorance, saw power in his physical size, his loud voice, his capacity to intimidate. He saw weakness in the dervish's quietness, his strange appearance, his refusal to fight back. But he was catastrophically wrong. The dervish's power was infinitely greater, precisely because it was not his own. By having no ego to defend, he was a perfectly clear channel for a different kind of power to operate. His humility was not a weakness, it was an invincible shield. He was, in that moment, the most protected man in the entire city because he had surrendered his protection to the highest possible authority. This principle is echoed in many wisdom traditions. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the power of water, which yields to every obstacle but overcomes everything. The dervish was like water. He did not resist the bully's force. He simply yielded, and in yielding, allowed the bully's own violent energy to create the conditions for his downfall. The bully was a hard stone, crashing against the world. The dervish was the vast, deep ocean that simply absorbed the stone and returned to stillness. The story serves as a terrifying commentary on the nature of divine justice. Our modern concept of justice is often therapeutic. It's about apologies, reconciliation, making the victim feel whole. The justice in this story is nothing of the sort. It is swift, absolute, and impersonal. It is the rebalancing of a cosmic scale. The act of mocking God's creation created a spiritual debt so profound that it had to be paid for immediately and in full. It didn't matter that the dervish forgave the debt. The debt was not owed to him. This is a profoundly sobering thought in our modern age. Think of the casual cruelty of the internet. Think of the comment sections, the forums, the social media platforms where mocking a person's appearance is a daily sport. We do this from the safety of our anonymity, believing our words are weightless electrons on a screen. This story suggests otherwise. It suggests that every cruel meme, every shaming comment, every joke made at the expense of someone's unchangeable physical features is an insult logged not in a server farm in Silicon Valley, but in a cosmic ledger. It suggests that we may be accruing debts we have no idea how to repay. This story defines the act of mocking others as a sign of low character, and this is where it meets modern psychology. The bully's behavior is a textbook example of an ego desperate to affirm its own existence by diminishing others. People who are truly confident and at peace with themselves feel no need to mock or belittle. They see the value in others because they are secure in their own. The bully's cruelty was not a sign of his strength, but a glaring symptom of his own inner poverty, his own spiritual sickness. He had to call the dervish a pumpkinhead to feel like a king. Now, let us bring the chilling wisdom of this story into the sanctuary of our own hearts. This is not an exercise in shame, but a courageous act of self-examination. Find a moment of stillness, close your eyes, and allow your breath to guide you into a space of honesty. I want you to bring to mind, without judgment, the face of a stranger you saw today. Someone on the street, in a store, online. Recall the first unfiltered thought you had about their appearance. Was it a thought of criticism, of comparison, of dismissal? Did you mentally label them based on their weight, their clothes, their face? Just notice the thought. This is the voice of the bully that lives, to some degree, in all of us. Acknowledge it. Now, I want you to perform a sacred act of imagination. Look at that same face again in your mind's eye, but this time, consciously superimpose upon it the signature of a divine artist. See their features not as a random collection of genetics, but as an intentional brushstroke. See the lines on their face as a part of a unique design. See the shape of their body as the specific vessel chosen for their soul. Look at this person and repeat silently in your heart the dervish's words, "This person has an owner." Feel the profound shift that occurs in your perception. The object of your judgment transforms into a subject of reverence. Finally, turn this lens of compassion upon yourself. Bring to mind a time when you were the one who was judged, a time when a cruel word about your appearance wounded you. Feel that old sting for a moment. And now apply the dervish's wisdom as a healing balm. Place a hand on your heart and say to that wounded part of you, "This body, this face, this being has an owner." Feel the profound truth that you are not some random, unprotected creature. You are a cherished work of art, a piece of divine property, and you are watched over with a love and a jealousy that you cannot comprehend. You are not defended by your own fragile ego, but by the strength of the artist who made you. The ultimate lesson of the dervish in the barber shop is a call to awaken from the slumber of our casual judgments. It teaches that the world is not a collection of objects for us to evaluate, but a gallery of sacred art for us to appreciate. Our task is not to be critics, but to be humble, reverent observers. To look at another human being and to see past the form to the intention behind the form is to begin to see with the eyes of the Spirit. The story is a warning, yes, but it is also a beautiful invitation. It invites us to live in a world where every encounter is an opportunity for reverence. To see the owner in every face is to walk through the world in a state of constant awe. It is to understand that we are surrounded by miracles disguised as ordinary people, and that the highest form of wisdom is to treat them as such. For we never know when we are in the presence of a humble pumpkin that belongs to the King of the universe.